Welcome back to the Jeremiah Show. My special guest today, Jessica Sula. She plays the character Orbison so well in the movie Wayward. Um, so Jessica
So funny
also
you say that
acted
because I remember when we went to the Sun Valley Film Festival, one of the guys was like, "You were scary," and I was like, "I don't think I
in
was."
Wayward.
Yeah, I was like, to an extent. So I
Well,
like that. She's
that's why I
intense.
paused to think about. Yeah, I was pausing, kind of thinking about your character. So you kind of feel like when Frank is introduced, he's sketchy, and you're like, I don't know which way this guy's going to go.
Uh-huh.
But as you, and so, and your character, Orbison, which is an amazing, such a cool name for the
I know,
character.
I do love the name Wilson.
Yeah, I'm like, why hasn't that been done before,
I know, Orbie.
or used before? But your character it's like sweet and soft, and then hard and
Uh-huh.
strong, and you played so many different ranges. And again, I don't want to give away the ending, but you're the tough one, and
Yes.
you're, and then also there's redemption. Again, I'm not going to give that away, but it maybe your character had to play the most. I don't know if this is a true statement or not. I've just thought of it just at the moment now, but you played so many different ranges. You played so many
Mhm.
different emotions.
I
Do
think
you think
Frank,
that's true?
I think the way Will, I do think it's true because I feel a lot of the times as a woman just like out on the and I can only imagine like sort of gutter punk style, like out on the road type stuff is you have to develop you have to be a shapeshifter a little bit to get along
Mhm.
with people and then to let them know you don't take any bullshit. And with
To
Frank,
survive.
you have to be in full survival mode and like think about different tactics. And Frank, I think Will does it so well is that he has a coolness, but you know not to go too far. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, you know
Yeah.
not to push it. And I think she's always known not to push it, but he has a soft spot for her because she's a little cheeky.
But
So
she does push it with him, doesn't
she
she?
does push it to the point where you
Which is kind of
understand, yeah,
fun.
I can't do this shit. He's over this stuff. Like he doesn't want to, he wants to retire from this, but that's what happens. I kept thinking in my head jokingly, well, that's what happens when you picked up a younger woman. She's not going to want to retire when you want to retire.
Let me, before we go into Wayward a little bit more, I wanted to also mention, well, I did mention that you've acted in films such as Split,
Mhm.
Honeytrap, and The Lovers. Um, and if this is correct, do you mind if I give out the year you were born?
Yes, yes, go for
Okay.
it. Yeah, I don't mind.
So
Do
1994,
people mind about that?
sometimes
1994. Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's so funny.
I get
I was
stopped.
born in
Don't say
2000,
what year.
darling.
Okay. Yeah, it's exactly that. So I don't, I want to be sensitive to that, but 1994, is that the correct? I got it right there.
Yes, yes. Yeah,
So
May
I
3rd.
was,
Send
I
me a
was like
birthday present.
1994. I was trying to remember what happened for me in 19, like where the world was in 1994.
Hmm.
And there's some pretty interesting things. Do you mind if I mention them
Please,
here?
actually, that's super interesting.
Yeah. So did you know when you were born that year was the release of the very first PlayStation? That might not
No,
excite
I
you,
didn't
but
know. I didn't know that.
that's
No,
big.
I love game. I
And then, okay, so now here's what, you movie business, what you're in. Pulp Fiction was released.
nice.
Forrest Gump, The Shawshank Redemption, The Lion King, and Jurassic Park were all released in 1994 when you were born. Those are some pretty,
Wow, those are some big blockbusters.
yeah. I
Gosh.
I remember seeing Pulp Fiction when it was released too in a theater. Nirvana frontman Kurt Cobain was found dead in his home.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Yeah, that's right. I do know that.
94, the popular sitcom Friends premiered.
It did.
Yes, in
Yeah,
1994.
my
In
dad liked watching it.
September, Amazon was founded in 1994.
Dun dun dun.
And here's
Game.
the last one. Well, not the World Wide Web is born in
Yes.
1994. You knew that?
Yes, because that's there's a YouTube video that will always around this time
It
because
comes out.
they're listening. It will show me sort of I think like a Good Morning America thing of like, and we have this thing called the internet, which is
That's
always
pretty,
really
those are
cool.
some pretty major things though that happened when you were born. And then here's two things, political and world events that made me just shake my head. So NAFTA, the
Uh-huh.
North American Free Trade Agreement, goes into
Hmm.
effect on January
Wow.
1st between United States, Canada, and Mexico. Began to eliminate tariffs between the countries. How timely is that?
Wow, that is funny.
And the
I want
last
to ask
thing,
my mate Martha because I'm really bad at anything astrology. I'm terrible
uh,
at it, but she's very good. I'm gonna ask her like, what's going on astrologically at that point.
and
Just
that in 1994. Yeah,
hmm.
I thought these were all very interesting.
That's very
And thanks for
interesting.
letting me bring them up. And then the last one was Nelson Mandela became the first democratically elected president of
Hmm.
South Africa following the end of apartheid.
Hmm.
His election marked a pivotal moment in South African history. So we talked about the roles that you choose. It seems a lot of them are very intense and a lot of horror, right? Would that
Hmm.
be fair to say? Films and
Yeah, I mean,
television?
I think it's the rite of passage of every sort of up and coming actor, especially now there's such a boom
Yeah.
in horror. Like you gotta pay your dues in that regard.
And is there anything, or have you already answered this, that draws you to those darker roles, to those characters? Or is it, it's a good script and a good
It has to always
crew?
be, no matter what genre your script is. If I just like an element of it, oh, I like the team. If I sometimes you just like the team and you're
Hmm.
happy with doing that. But with Malum, I actually enjoyed it because Anthony is so passionate for horror, and I like it when people love something that they're doing. And he's an excellent director to work with because he always knew where the character was, and we worked with like practicals, which is always cool. And he, is his Clive Barker. No, who is it? Clive. I'm trying to remember his
Clive Barker?
mentor. I think so. I think
Hmm.
if I'm getting that right. Um, is his mentor, and and he's a legend within the horror community. So I'm gonna have to double check that I'm not botching that. I
But
don't.
yeah, Clive Barker is
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
horror genre.
Yeah. So that was cool to me. And with every role, I just want to make sure that even in like some sort of teen drama, I want to make sure I can play something that is grounded and everything makes sense as I'm doing it, even if it's the most surreal thing. That person has to think that this makes sense at the time. And then I can sort of go anywhere. I don't mind what you want to do with the story or where you want to bring it. I like things to be pushed to an edge, but if I can work with you to find grounding of why they're doing what they're doing, then I'm excited to do that. Um, yeah, with horror and all that stuff is it's definitely the thing that can be a bread and butter at times because you
Mhm.
are working and that is a demand. People right now are wanting to scare themselves on their downtime.
Why do you think that is? And I'll tell you why my thought on that question, or where that question is coming from me, is I want to laugh right now, and I want to
Yeah.
be uplifted a little bit. Wayward did that for me.
I think
Um,
it's changing to that a little bit. I think that's where it feels like the zeitgeist is moving
it,
toward.
it feels like we've got enough scariness in the world, but I mean, maybe
It's controlled.
it's a reflection.
I understand it because if you can control the thing that's scaring you, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end, and then you can
It's
go
interesting.
somewhere that's so extreme that you would never go in your own personal life.
Yeah.
You could just like, and then
Huh.
you just leave it all there. And I think people like to push that. We're getting because we have to just energetically get used to and desensitize ourselves to all the things that are going on, and it's just beyond our control, and it can feel
Yeah.
so much that you're at the brim of what you can take. And then if you get to just escape and watch something that's just terrifying, you can leave it and it feels like your meter has gone up. You know what I mean? You feel a little bit
Totally.
stronger, maybe. You feel like you've exerted yourself and you don't even
Yeah.
have to put any energy into what's going on in the outside world. You could focus on you. I don't know. Maybe it's
I
that.
hadn't considered that, but
Mm.
that makes a lot of sense, and I'm sure that's why. That's a great perspective on it. So, making Wayward, what made the experience, I can't remember, we talked a little bit about this. I can't remember if it's off air or
Being
on air,
hard.
but what made the experience hard, difficult, or unique? What were what's your takeaway on after you've had time to reflect on the making of Wayward?
Well, I at first I didn't. I was really wanting to do this because it was a character I feel I hadn't had in a little bit. I feel when I played Layla and Honeytrap, it was an arc of it. That was when I was 18, I think. And that was a fun one and hard to go into. And just, you know, again, it's the psychology behind why people are doing things that's super interesting to me. Um, it looks like because you're grabbing the camera that you're boofing my nose.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I had to plug it in. It was dying on me. I
It's
apologize.
kind of cute, no. um so it like there was I hadn't done that in a while, and then I just finished doing Panic, this TV show for Amazon, and in the middle of that you want to be able to make something with somebody that's new. And Jacqueline was new. She had a passion for film. I enjoyed reading the script. I thought I'd be able to, I thought my natural self would be a good match for it, like a good tone. Sometimes you read things and you don't know how you're going to fit into it. But this, I thought, oh, I could see myself uh, trying to do this. And it scared me. So I felt I should audition for this because I'm getting a little bit nervous if I can or can't do it. And that ultimately is what made it hard because I felt I couldn't do it at times because you're in a wide open space and it's in especially with an indie, you're not relying on shock factor, you're not relying on big budget, or the way you look. It's just kind of you. So, and I had to take me where I was at, and it was just a hard time for me in general. So,
Why was it such a hard time? Do you mind
just
telling?
the typical depression, just coming out of isolation in COVID and not
Mhm.
knowing where anything was going. I was just checked out, just completely checked out, and didn't know what I was doing acting wise. I had terrible the normal self image stuff, all of that stuff. So it was just plaguing me because I'd been sitting at home and it was concentrated. So
Right.
I guess that is why it was a gift to also have Wayward to focus on too, and put that in there. But at the same time, it meant I was needy in the way of what's my performance doing, what's going on. When you're making an independent film, crew are going to be disgruntled because they can only get so much and they are being worked really hard. So that you're taking on that morale, you're like, oh, so does anybody believe in this? Who
Yeah.
believes in this? And then Jacqueline is also like, I don't know what's going on. I'm making a movie. I can't believe I'm doing this. So it was a
It
lot,
worked
a lot of
though.
that.
Why do you
It
think
did
it
work.
worked? Why did it
I
work?
I think
All those things you mentioned.
yeah, yeah, I think honestly because of that. Because at the end of the day, we did all still show up to work and try our best.
Yeah.
Because you want it to succeed and you want it to do well. And another thing, having the sweetness of Chloe at that age, I think also really helps too.
It's interesting. I want to bring this up because I've talked to all of them, as you know. Chloe said her grandfather died at that
Mm-hmm.
while they were filming,
Mm-hmm.
and she was away from home, and she said it was very hard for her.
Mm-hmm.
And Will mentioned, I think actually Will was the only one that said he got good news about they were going to have a
Yeah,
baby girl
yeah.
during the filming. So he has really those memories, those great
Mhm.
memories. But he did talk about it being hard coming out of COVID because if we can all remember back to that time and being in those years in that time,
Mhm.
we had no idea what was happening, where it was
None.
going to go, what life would look like in the future. Like we
Yeah.
really were all lost and
Yeah.
guessing, right? So,
I
um,
felt lost. I know some people had a good time, when we can look back on it now. And I always knew there'd be another end to it. There just has to be. That's just human nature. But, I also, maybe it's easy for me saying that now, but no, I did have an inner compass of there will be an end. And it just felt a little bit like, oh, damn, that's the luck of the draw for our particular, like, whole generation of people. We
Yeah.
just thought we got this one, and it was strange and it was different because we now are interacting with technology in a very different way. We now are all self-aware in a messed up way. So it all felt brand new at the same time too, and everybody also feels they're an expert at everything now, or knowing what's happening, and losing some family members to extreme ideas, having to keep them in your life and love them for those ideas. Anyway, it just everything in, especially with my family, that was sort of happening, and you have to just keep paddling to the forefront. But it's true, I didn't genuinely know what the hell was going on. Like, how was my life going to be shaped by this? I was also living in New York at the time. When COVID broke out, I was in Austin, Texas filming. We shut down, and when I had to leave all of my stuff in an apartment, and I flew back on a plane with one other cast member, and it was just the two of us on a plane. And I was like, what is going on? And then you're in New York, and I went for one time, I was like, I have to go for a walk, and I walked to Times Square and it was empty. So yeah, it definitely felt
Scary.
bizarre and scary. And so I didn't have the time where people describe as, well, I'm away from everybody, I'm good, I'm focusing on me. I was very sad by the whole thing.
Mhm.
It didn't feel comfortable to me.
And reflecting on that now and how you felt like you are right now, how do you feel now? Are you optimistic? Are you
Yes,
excited for the future?
very much so. I think you have to be. I like I said with the inner compass thing, you always know you're going to get out of it. It's just hard because you just have to remember you're in the weeds, and that fear is just a little bit of your brain protecting itself. It has to do it. It has to protect itself in that way. And once I can reframe it that way, it is not, nothing feels too big. So I genuinely think we've seen it all before as like humankind,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah, maybe not us, but it has been
Yeah, but
seen.
it's been
Well,
seen. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and we all make it. Well, I think that's a good way to look to
Hmm.
get a perspective, gain perspective. Your character, before we take our final break here, what parts, how did you determine? You mentioned let me just back up. You mentioned you were scared. Can I do this character? And can
Hmm.
I become Orbison? Can I do it the
Hmm.
way it's meant to be done?
Yes.
And you did, and then some and more. The character really comes alive off the screen and really propels the story, and keeps it exciting, but it also keeps it human, and you're connected to your character. How did you finally come to determine what was important in the character and how you would, bring that to life? Or did it come scene by scene?
I
Or was it something
I
that,
think that's why it was a struggle. It had to come scene by scene. I think uh with Orbison, I that's what it was. I had to meet myself where I was at. I had to take it beat by beat. And I had to also know that ultimately this, this girl is trying to do some good, even if it doesn't look like she is. She's trying to get herself out of a situation, and at the same time fulfill, some sort of need to have some innocence in her life with having Cleo, and a friendship, a normal friendship, even though it isn't normal what
Mhm,
she's doing. So I sort of had to look at it as like, this makes complete logical sense to her,
mhm.
you know? And at the same time, she can just keep it to herself, but she just gets to hang out and be a kid again.
And you did have that connection with Chloe
I
or
love
Cleo.
Chloe.
Was
Yeah,
it hard
she's
to say
fab.
goodbye to her when you were finished?
Well, she's just always going to be great, and I always just know I'll swing back around and see her when I do. She's just, and I, of course, we keep in touch via Instagram and all that stuff, and it's lovely. I loved getting to watch her on her show, and you know what I mean. Like it, but it made sense. It made
Under the
sense to
Bridge.
me. Yes, Under the
Yeah,
Bridge.
she was great in that.
It made sense to me, because she has a really wonderful family around her who are like solid and loving, and then they let her go and explore and do this job. And it's so hard. I only had that sort of funny, I mean, I guess I had a taste of it because I was 16 when I started Skins, and when I look back now, that's very young.
Yeah.
But she was even younger doing that and had so much to do and give. So just being on set, showing up, having to balance her school, just she's multi-talented too. Like she has other creative outlets. So she was doing all of that and then being very gracious. So that's definitely something that kept me going. I think I mentioned it earlier, like having Chloe there be Cleo helped everyone sort of keep on track. You know,
Hmm.
you want to
Hmm.
set a good example because she's setting one herself.
Do you have any other creative outlets?
I'm embarking on that. I always felt like I never had the space. I mean, I play guitar and all of that stuff, but they're all very personal to me. I
There,
felt very nervous to even share them. So
do you think you'll ever share your music?
maybe one day, but I'm not in a rush to. I feel like I like I like having it's
It's
not
for
even
you.
me wanting to be mysterious. It's just genuinely something for me. And then what I would love to do is be able to express myself with various different characters and films. And maybe in that regard, things that I do will be shown there.
Okay, well, we're gonna, speaking of what's coming up next for you, pretty
Mhm.
exciting. We're gonna talk about that right after the break, our final break here. Jessica Sula is my special guest today. She is Orbison in Wayward. You've got to see her performance. It's just amazing. Other actors in the Wayward are Chloe Guidry, Jess Wexler, and Will Britton, all outstanding. Wayward,
Yeah.
waywardfilm.com. You can watch it stream on Apple and Amazon and Google Plus. And you can follow Jessica on her Instagram at Jessie Sula. We'll be right back.